This episode is brought to you by Swish Personalised Video. Give the Dons fan in your life the best gift ever. Jesse, I imagine there'd be someone on there that you'd absolutely love to see. Who would it be?
James.
Yeah.
Please give it to me.
I don't think he's on there, I'm sorry to say. But what about an Isaac Kako video? I reckon that'd do pretty well.
Yeah. Maybe. Is there a Henry Slattery on there?
No Hank. No Hank, unfortunately. No Hank, no Kepler
okay.
Bradley or Scott Gumbleton. But there's a Nate Caddy, Joel.
Oh, yeah. Lovely. I might get that for Mags for her birthday, but just accidentally write my own name in the script. And, like when Homer gets Marge the bowling ball called Homer.
Love
just
it.
do one of those.
Love it. If you use the code Sash, you can get 10% off all purchases on Swish. You can find the link in our episode description as well as on our social media pages. Thanks to Swish for sponsoring the show.
Welcome to the Sash podcast, definitely not the official podcast of the Essendon Football Club. I'm your host tonight, Jesse, and joining me for our second opposition preview podcast for this year is Pete from the Crowject. How are you, Pete?
Good, Jesse. How are you, my man?
Yeah, not too bad. I feel like it's always easier consuming a loss, given we haven't had too many recently to digest. There was certainly some positives and a number of negatives out of the weekend's game. I'm sure you would be a much happier man than us Essendon supporters with your big win over the weekend.
Well, it's a weird feeling to win in the first round and not have any injuries and sort of things are looking optimistic. I don't know how this feels. It's almost like the Crows back in 2015, and we won't talk about what happened for the rest of that year, that's for sure. But it's a strange, odd feeling. It's almost like how Carlton fans never feel, which I think we both enjoy the fact that doesn't happen. So, yeah, no, it's weird feeling. That's all I can say about that, mate.
Well, I think we're... as an AFL community collectively, we were all very happy to see the Carlton fans leave 2 minutes to go after being beaten by Richmond over the weekend. How good was that?
Oh, it's cathartic. I mean, look, I think the odds were for Richmond at about $10.50 or something else like that. And how many, for yourself, Jesse, how many of your mates put, I'll just put a cheeky fiver on it, that sort of thing? I can think of about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So,
too many.
Yeah, too many, way too many. But yeah, look, an enemy of an enemy is a friend. And that's all I can say about that. And equally, to see Port absolutely crap the bed. Oh, by the way, is this a swearing podcast? Are we allowed to,
there are certainly profanities, probably far too many. Hence,
Good.
we
all right.
are not a regular when it comes to the football club actually inviting us in for, special interviews or this type of thing.
You've been blacklisted or sash listed. Is that the best way to put it?
Look, we're getting better. We're getting better. I feel like the profanities were a little worse a couple of years ago. But look, nonetheless, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And
Thanks.
We're here to talk about the weekend's game. For all of those listeners out there that aren't aware, we do have the Adelaide Crows at the MCG. The first time we've played Adelaide at the MCG with probably what feels like in my entire lifetime of watching football. I feel like I haven't seen us there, and that it's at 1:20 p.m. on Saturday. So we've got Pete here, obviously a die-hard Adelaide Crows supporter, and looking forward to getting some insight from you. I feel like where we usually start the show is to get some insight, Pete, from new panelists on to understand how you became an Adelaide Crows supporter.
Yeah, so look, my journey as an Adelaide Crows fan, I guess, for being born in 1988, sort of the zenith of all things for the Crows was in 97 and 98. And my amazing cousin David, he took me to my first preseason game back in 96, and I was hooked from then. I think it did help with Port coming into the AFL and the Crows saying, well, go and get fucked. We'll just win 2 premierships in a row with Malcolm Blight. That sort of helped a little bit in swaying my brain. But I think since that point too, I think I've just been galvanised in knowing that all things Crows and sort of understanding the SANFL mantra of being born and bred and basically hating everything that's black and white, unless they beat Port on Saturday night, which was great too. But I guess for the pod itself, we started back in 2018, so we've been going for 7 years now, and it's just gone from strength to strength. I guess unlike the Sash, we actually have a good relationship with the club, which is weird. So that's always been a good thing, and they support us, and we support them too. But we're not necessarily happy clappers or anything else like that. We do call a spade, and I tell you what, going through the doldrums of 2020, not just with COVID, but with the way the Crows were going at that point too, mate, we called things out as they were, and even last year with the way things are. But yeah, things are looking up, which is really weird. Really weird. I don't know how to feel about it. So we've had a great off season, and yeah, I love it. So, or maybe I just love hating Port. Maybe that's my thing. So,
well, it's easy to hate the black and white. We certainly know exactly how that is. And for all of those listeners out there that aren't aware, the Adelaide Crows did play St Kilda on Sunday and got up against them. They were playing at home. The score was 135 Adelaide to 72 St Kilda, so a pretty big thumping there of 63 points. Tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that game, and yeah, just generally where, I know you said it was a surprise, but I guess just firstly, you probably weren't expecting that, and what do you think were the keys to the victory over the weekend?
Yeah, we were not expecting to win. Let's be honest. I know a lot of us, we were thinking that it is St Kilda, a bit of Ross ball, a bit of defensive stuff, and surely be able to break through that. I was not expecting a perfect weather day, unlike what you guys had in Melbourne on Sunday as well for the Grand Prix. They should really have the Grand Prix back in Adelaide, but that's a separate story. But it was a beautiful day, and, we kicked 130 plus. Like, we were just on fire from start to finish. No injuries. Really weird. Like I said, we've got a new pre-game thing that was happening. I can't tell you, mate, how strange of a day it was. It was like the perfect day of footy in one thing. But then, even now, I think to myself, was it because we were so good, or was it because St Kilda suck? You can't gauge it that well based off of one game. But if we're going to extrapolate it, I guess the litmus test is going to happen this Saturday against your mob. So, yeah. Like I said, mate, weird. I don't know how to feel. It's optimism. It's very, I feel yuck. So,
look, you've gone through a lot of hard years like us Essendon supporters. It's been a long time since there's been really anything of note to cheer of. I mean, you obviously had that year. Was it back in 2017 that you made the grand final against the Tigers? Do I have that right?
Yes.
We won't talk about that. I think that's probably enough said on that topic. But look, I don't think that you should downplay the significance. You don't want to take too much into consideration with the round one win. But St Kilda did finish, in the top 12 as far as my calculations from last year were concerned. And they certainly weren't an easy beat side. And, to put 135 points on the board against a Ross Lyon team clearly shows that you did something really well. And it appears this year you've got quite a number of weapons that, last year Rankin was obviously a significant pickup for you. Jordan Dawson over the past couple of years. Your recruiting has been on song with a few of those players, and it looks like now with some of your younger talent actually showing a bit, which was probably a question for a while there, was your recruitment through the draft, similar to Essendon. Who do you think are some of the key players that we should be looking out for and be worried about as an Essendon outfit over the weekend?
Like I said, mate, this is a weird thing to say, but where to start? Look, you've got Isaac Rankin is now playing more in the midfield, which we saw over the weekend as well. Alex Neil-Bullen moving over from Melbourne back to Adelaide. He was amazing on the weekend too. Matt Crouch, Talk about a renaissance. Obviously all Australian back in 2017 from memory, and he's really come back, with a vengeance too, and that's fantastic to see in itself. Isaac coming from GWS as well, plenty of nicknames there, but he's been fantastic. and even like Sid Draper, he had he came on as the sub on the weekend as our first round draftee from last year. He has looked phenomenal as an inside midfielder. Now, obviously, he's in his first year, so maybe that may sort of peter out a little bit throughout the season because he may not have the engine ready to go. But even like Rochelle and Saligo as well. Saligo can really rip you apart. Rochelle, he's that infamous as James Donald Fultz McCann said in our pod, the Bullwog, as we like to call him as well. Fantastic man. But I honestly don't know where to stop. Like, it's really weird. We have no injuries. None. Zero. Look, we may win the April Premiership for once. This may be great. So, yeah, there's a lot happening, mate. I guess for you guys as well, what do I need to keep an eye out for at the MCG on Saturday?
Well, I mean, it's pretty plain and simple with Essendon. You just need to have half-backs that can move the ball well, and you seem to do pretty well carving up our butter-like defence. So I would say, providing that you can kick the ball off half-back at the moment from a selection point of view, there's been some big question marks around our forward line, half-forward pressure that we put on Hawthorn over the weekend. There was just far too easy ball movement, transition. It's been an issue at Essendon. I'm sure all you need to do is just listen to any talkback footy show, and it's pretty much all they talk about. And, for us, it's frustrating, but there were a lot of positives to take out of the weekend. And I was just listening to SEN on the way home tonight, and Daniel Hoyen, good old champion data expert, said that from a statistical point of view, there's actually only been 7 teams in the VFL AFL history to have ever lost with the level of statistics that we won over the weekend. I mean, it was a bit of a whitewash in the end. Sam Mitchell spoke about it, stating how it wasn't something that his football club will feel they, want to replicate, because if they lose like that statistically each week, they're not going to get many wins on the board. And, from a stoppage point of view, from a midfield point of view, just a general contest point of view, that's what I would say you really need to look out for. We were very fit, very dogged. We got jumped in the first quarter, not having that opening round game under our belt. Certainly, I would say, hampered us to an extent. But look, the effort that we brought and the contest work, I mean, we were up 19 clearances, I believe, by the end of the day. We absolutely trounced them in contested possession. Tackles were really high. The only thing that we lack is just execution at the moment, and it's something that we have lacked for a while. So I think you should expect, I mean, your one would be, if you beat us in the contest in the clearance, it's going to be very difficult for us to come anywhere close to beating you guys over the weekend.
So what you're trying to say is you've impressed Champion Data so much that you dominated in every statistic and still somehow managed to crap the bed. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that's the Essendon way.
Yeah,
if you
right.
have looked at the last 2 years of Brad Scott football, that's typically how we go. We win the inside 50s and the clearances, and we somehow manage to lose the game because of our delivery into the forward line.
Let's look, if I may, I want to indulge you. Let's talk coaches, because Brad Scott, bit of a firebrand sort of operator. I cannot understand how he got another coaching gig after what happened at North Melbourne, let alone at a huge club like Essendon, let's be honest. And conversely, I look at Matty Nix. Now, I've been a huge Matty Nix supporter. I've met the guy. He has a great coaching pedigree behind him with his time at GWS. But I have always felt he's under-resourced, and his time with us, he's now got some really great supports with Murray Davis coming over from Brisbane. But what's your thoughts on the inferior Scott, as some like to say, compared to Chris. And who do you think would be better at surfing, Chris or Brad Scott? Because they both, yeah.
Well, I think based on their career accolades, Chris played in 3 premierships, played over 200 games. Brad played in 2, played under 200. I think he played 176 and has not achieved glory as a coach yet. So I would say the law of averages would say that Chris is a better surfer, in my opinion, based on all of that information. There's always one twin brother that's a little bit more confident than the other, and I think you see similarities in Harry and Ben Mackay as well. But look, to answer your question, when it comes to Brad Scott, I mean, he's dealt pretty bad hands in terms of stepping into a club. Obviously, there was a significant overhaul from an executive level all the way down, to a list management level, and I think the true issues with the Essendon Football Club really do lie within our list strategy in the past 10, 15 years. Adrian Dodoro just had a knack of liking to select project players and also half-back flanks. That's sort of what his niche was, or 202 centimetre wingers. That's typically, he loves going for these unicorns, and we've seen plenty of them not work. And I mean, as far as for creating a football environment which is underpinned by professionalism, I do really think that Brad has improved the culture at the club, and it appears that he's raised the standards in terms of training, in terms of understanding, what is required of an AFL footballer if you do want to be successful. And I mean, anyone who had the privilege of being coached by Lee Matthews, in my opinion, is someone that you can learn a lot from, one of the greats of the game. And for that reason, I believe that, he still is the right man for the role. And, we really are year 1 now into Brad's proper list rebuild, with Dodoro and a few other skeletons in the closet being exited over the past couple of years. It's really him and Matt Rose's time to be able to put together the list that they want. And
do you feel like he's had to push against off-field issues for so long that now those shackles are now freed and now it's do or die? Would you say that?
Do or die for Brad, I wouldn't say that. I mean, based on the fact that they've just extended his contract out till 2027 is a pretty good indication of where the club's faith in him as an operator. And I mean, look, I tend to agree. We've been looking for these sugar hits for a long time with, trading in Dylan Shield, Devon Smith, trading out first rounders, trading coaches every 2 or 3 years, and, not going through the right selection process. And we went through, a formal outsourced selection process to acquire him as a coach. And at this point in time, I think as a supporter base, it is frustrating to hear, but we do need to understand that we are really at year 1 in terms of our list rebuild, with Matt Rosa being at the helm as our new list development coach, not development, just our list manager. But, in saying that, he did a ripper job. I mean, we picked up 7 draft picks and they all look like players that can kick the ball and that can run. And that's not something that it's amazing. Dodoro just could never draft players that could kick or that could run. And
which is something you need. Yeah, it's a pretty important thing for AFL.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And it looks like a lot of these draftees, Kako's obviously goes without saying. He looks like he's going to be a superstar. But we've got a couple of blokes in the VFL. Zach Johnson in particular, we picked up at pick 70. He was our last pick in the draft. Interview Nate Caddy. Nate Caddy actually said he played with him and it was the biggest steal of the draft. And in his first VFL practice game, which was a week ago, he was he did his shoulder, so he had surgery, didn't really compete too much in any of the match sim. And in his practice game a couple of weeks ago, he had 36 and was best on ground. So it's pretty impressive at pick 70, and there's a few other golden nuggets in there. So here we are again as an Essendon fan base relying on our recruits and not our senior players.
That's the Essendon way. That's good. No, it's. I mean, look, I was just thinking though what you said about everything Brad Scott and sort of relying on that, youthful growth as well. How does it make you feel about the senior list? Because we can talk about the seniors as well. Obviously, with Tex Walker, I think he's into his 47th year or something like that, and he's getting very vintage. But he has aged spectacularly well. Unless, now this is a key to know if Tex Walker is going to be out. You go to his Instagram. If he's mowed the lawn, this is not a joke. Dude's got a Scott Bonner 17-inch, right? That thing weighs like 70 kilos. If he pushes that around the backyard every week afterwards, he's out with a back issue. That's not a joke either. We've actually looked it up. So keep an eye out.
Bizarre.
The weather's looking pretty good here in Adelaide, so he may go for a casual mow, and next minute he's not going to make the 1 hour flight over to Melbourne. So,
jeez, that'd be great. I might have to send him a DM telling him that his grass is looking a little bit shonky.
Yeah, I did message. I actually, I was a bit facetious about 2 or 3 years ago. I actually messaged his Mrs. Else as well, who really nice and follows us on Instagram too. And I just said, haha, your lawn's looking a bit weird. And she said, oh, Tex is about to go out there now to mow. And no joke, he missed the next game. I felt a bit bad about that one. But no, it's, I guess with your list as well, any of the aging players that you're looking to see more out of or anything else like that, Jesse?
Definitely. I mean, over the weekend is another good example of a number of our senior players letting us down. And, it doesn't necessarily mean senior in terms of games played, but there are a number of players, continually that are seen as leaders in the club that fundamentally just get things wrong at a basic level with their disposal and their endeavour in the contest. And
are they good at kicking and can they run?
Well, a lot of them can actually run, but they can't kick. And the two people that I want to
not a good
about,
thing for AFL from what I've heard. Yeah, right.
Dylan Shield there's still some big question marks over his role in the team. He's been trialled in a new role at halfback, and I mean, Dylan Shield's never been an elite kick. He has a tendency to put the ball on boot and bomb it long and make mistakes. And it was seen over the weekend. He did butcher the ball, and you just can't afford that. All the best teams, as we said in our Monday pod, they have just surgeons at halfback, and we've got two butchers at the moment in Andy McGrath and Dylan Shield, and it is a massive concern. I mean, Andrew McGrath has been a concern for a while now. His lack of ability to show leadership on the field and get the basic fundamentals right. So, we've only ever been held by Merritt as our leader, and it really has been one out. But what we are now seeing is some of our 23 and above players like Jai Caldwell and Sam Durham, Sam Draper, these next crop of players are really stepping up to take on that leadership mantle. And I mean, I don't know if you saw Jai Caldwell's game over the weekend, but, he pretty much put the team on the back, 36 disposals, a goal, couple goal assists. I mean...
Yeah, I was looking at the stats just then, like 11 tackles as well. I think he led both teams.
He had the quadruple double, actually, if we're going
the quad dubs. Yeah,
by the NBA terms.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, can we talk about Sam Draper and that?
It's important too.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Yeah. Let me ask you: would you want Sam Draper at the Crows next year?
No.
Tell me why.
Well, one, I don't think he fits a need that we need actively right now. We've got Riley Tilthorpe as well, just another player that'll rip it up as well against you guys, and I say that respectfully. But if you've got a dearth of halfback flankers, which is, we've got them in spades here. They grow on trees around Adelaide Football Club. And we've got Nankervis, Michaelini, plenty. I don't see where Sam Draper would fit. Okay? And to be honest, if he was to have come back, he would have come back by now. And, I am, just from a Adelaide point of view, and I say this as a South Australian, I don't understand the whole, he wants to come back home factor. Some people may like going to Melbourne. Some people may like going to Adelaide or Perth or whatever, but I'm with the view of, you just go and play wherever the hell you're sent. That's the sort of the NFL, NBA, any professional sports model. I don't get the whole go home factor. and I'm not bitter about Patrick Dangerfield whatsoever. But that's the sort of thing. I don't see, other than the go home side of things or the want. I think he would want to come back more than we would want him. I could probably see him more at Port, honestly. But at the Crows, I don't think so. Would we consider it? Absolutely. But I don't see it as like a, oh my God, the North Melbourne war chest is, ready to go down at Cromland, to pick him up. So, yeah, that's how I think. And
well,
also,
the benefit that you have is that he walks to your club, so you're not having to trade.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you take him if he walks, is what I would say, right? You're not going to not have him on your list if you pick him up for free.
Yeah, and look, the other thing too, he's an absolute dog for what he did last year diving on the ball. Let's be fair about that, especially the secondary flop after the siren, like that was one of those personal Crows moments of right in front of me. Like legitimately, it did happen right in front of me. And
how was the abuse? Were you hurling abuse at him?
Look, I wasn't necessarily hurling abuse. The umpiring the whole night for both sides, and I've said this, the umpiring for both sides that night was shambolic. I think Nick Foote was one of the umpires, and he's one of the umpires I can't stand because he can't call a game correctly. When it's ever in his zone, that's one he never calls. And just everything that night couldn't have happened. I think just before then, there was a holding the ball that should have been paid against Tex that didn't happen. If you watch that in the 4 or 5 seconds beforehand. So I'm saying that just to be completely unbiased here. The umpiring that night was absolutely shocking. And there was I think there were quite a few advantage, play on free kicks that happened. And going back looking at it, I think it resulted in like 2 or 3 goals for Essendon and none for us. That it was just a really weirdly, like very poorly officiated game. But to just flop on the ball when you know that there's hardly any time left, like the lid was going to blow on that place. And I did the walk and talk afterwards, and everyone was just mad, especially because it was our second home game since that 2023 Sydney game with the goal that was made a point. So I think everyone was sick to death of umpires, and I don't know. I don't think we'd want Sam Draper just for that reason, out of spite, because that's what we do at the Crows. So yeah,
fair enough. Well, let's turn our attention to the games weekend, and just to provide a little bit of history on recent encounters, the last 3 meetings so last year in July we played you guys, and that was the infamous game, very high scoring game, 17-11, 113 Essendon, defeated by Adelaide 17-13, 115, and that was an absolute clinic that Ben Keys put on. I don't think he'll ever play a game like that again in his career, and it was hard to watch, but I'm sure that was a good one that you enjoyed over the week, watching it over the telecom.
Yeah. It was cathartic. Let me put it that way, especially after that 3-point loss earlier in the year. Ben Keys has always been a good goal kicker. So he was practically unmarked the whole game, which was really, I'm just looking back at the stats now for it. Even Fogarty with 4 goals, who's a very hot man, by the way. He put on a clinic, and Rochelle with that game-winning goal too, going absolutely off. No, it was great. And look, I'm not going to lie. I do remember that game. I felt like you guys just squandered some great opportunities. And we squandered less of them. Yeah.
It was a toing and froing game. And, we were up by only about 10 points. And I think we kicked a couple, and we got out to maybe like a 20-point lead, and then missed a couple of rudimentary set shots, and then there was just the avalanche at the end, which ultimately led to the demise. And then earlier in the year was a 3-point victory to Essendon, which is the Frosby flop Sam Draper game. And the following year, we played you again at home, and we got up against you by 18 points. Again, quite a high scoring game, 17-13, 115 to 15-7 97. So it clearly shows between the two teams that there's not a huge amount of defending that occurs at Essendon or Adelaide. And
Correct.
looking into providing some insight from what you've seen regarding the game style, tactically, how do you believe that Matthew Nicks is going to set up the team? And, you know, what do you think that we should expect from Adelaide over the weekend as far as game style is concerned?
Look, I think the big thing is going to be pressure, pressure, pressure. That was something that I did notice on the weekend. We were all over St Kilda like crap on a blanket. Like, it was great to see. But it's also something that we saw in spurts last year. And over the weekend, that was just from start to finish. Like I said before, weird, okay? Because I'm not used to that. However, look, the big thing as well was, you know, just absolute efficiency. You know, if I'm just looking here, our conversion of 70% that we had was really, really good as well. We were able to just, I think, just constant pressure on and around the ball was something that really broke apart St Kilda. And look, I think you guys played against, you know, I've picked Hawthorn to make a prelim this year. You know, I think they're going to be bloody awesome. You know, I wouldn't read too much into thinking, and I think we probably agree on this, it's only one game. That's the only sample that we have. So how much of that can I say, oh my God, you know, we're going to play the exact same, going from one game to another? I don't think so. But given that we're completely fit, you know, we seem to have had like a genuinely good off season, and the club seem, you know, pretty coy on how things are going. I do think for you guys, pressure is going to be the thing. And how can you react to that pressure? Do you lose your structure? Does that break down? And yeah, I guess for yourself, is that something that you're concerned about, Jesse, or do you have a different view?
Well, I mean, look, it's always challenging when a team brings pressure for all four quarters, and we saw that over the weekend with the Hawks. I mean, their pressure, they probably dropped off in the last 10, 15 minutes. They took their foot off the pedal. They were up by, you know, 5 or 6 goals, and we kicked a couple junk time goals in the end to bring the margin back down. But that pressure from Hawthorn, you know, was as good as it gets. And not only when we turned over the ball from their pressure was that regular, but they also, you know, killed us on turnover. And if, as I know you do, you've got some really good ball users, and if you're getting the ball in the right players' hands, then if that pressure's on, it's going to make for a really good game. I would say the pressure's going to be on you guys, though, to bring it for a second week. And I think the question is going to be on the consistency from both these clubs, because at their best last year, both of these clubs matched it with the best, and at their worst, they, you know, had the potential of losing to the worst teams. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because, you know, it's a game at the MCG. I'm not too sure what the Crows record is at the G, but like most interstate teams, I would say it's probably not amazing. But again, you could probably share a little bit more information about what your recent history at the G has been like.
Look, we haven't played too many. I think last year we did play. We played Collingwood and narrowly lost. I'm trying to remember back to last year. I'm trying to block out most of it.
I remember that as well. That was a pretty good game. You guys looked pretty good. That was earlier in the season.
And I think that was when Rankin basically pinged his hamstring, streaming down the wing, going for goal. You know, because, you know, nothing good can happen for us. I'm just having a look last year. So yeah, Collingwood, we lost. We also played Hawthorn and lost against them by 27 points. Going back the year before that, we lost those 2 games. We played the MCG to Collingwood by 2 points, and to Melbourne by 4 points. Geez, things are going well. And then then we just lost to Collingwood by 42 points in 2022, and obviously COVID. And look, I was there for the grand final in 2017. I have a beautiful American wife. She is from the south, hence the top, and Max Fletcher we can talk about afterwards. But I've never seen her so mad after a game where she shirt-fronted a Richmond fan coming out of the game.
Oh my God.
And as she said, I never want I never want to go back to that fucking stadium ever again. We went the next year anyway, and you're not going to believe it, but we lost to Hawthorn by 56 points in 2018. That was a very wet game from memory.
So it looks like it's been a while since you won at the G, by the sound of things.
That is right, yeah. So I think the last time we won, and I think it was a game that I was at, was Carlton in 2017. That's, where we won by 60 points in front of, a raucous crowd of 32,000.
Well, there's no better team to verse when you're looking to break a hoodoo than Essendon. We've got a happy knack of allowing teams to get wins that otherwise they've never been able to achieve. So that does make me, as a superstitious supporter, as we all are, very nervous about the weekend's game.
Sorry. Look, I don't know how to feel about it because, like I said, it's been one round. We've had a great off season. I can't stress this enough. This is very strange for us. I'm actually considering the F word finals. What the hell? And I know that's based off of one game, but based off of everything rolling from 2023 and last year as well. And
you sound like an Essendon supporter. You sound like us, Peter. You'd fit in well on this show, I think.
Look, well, I hated Dodoro as well, so maybe I am an Essendon fan.
Maybe you've got a sash underneath that jumper of yours.
No, look, one of the doctors I used to work with, and he listens to you guys as well, shout out to Michael. Look, even last year, when I would see him at work, I'd just be like, mate, what happened? And he's just like, I don't know, Peter. It's just poor guys, he's an interstate Essendon member as well. So he gets to enjoy when they come over and be disappointed then as well. So, except for last year. But yeah, it's strange. Maybe, look, I've always liked Essendon, and I'll be honest about that. I think I've always loved the 90s logo as well. It's a good bomber as well. It's big buff, that sort of thing. And Kevin Sheedy as well, very angry man. And that's the sort of thing I love as well. Just an angry plumber. So, that's what you want, coaching your team. But, look, maybe I should consider converting over. I don't know. So
I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't.
Yeah, no.
You should stick exactly where you are and be in pain and misery like what we are. But I guess looking forward to the game, who do you think are some players that have the ability to, really turn up and turn the screws in your favour over the weekend?
Oh, where to start? And I mean, I'm not much saying that facetiously either. I mean that more in the sense of there are that many. I think Max Michelini is going to be the one that I really think could rip you guys apart as well. I've seen him have a little more time in the midfield, but he's mostly in the back line. He hasn't missed a game, I think, since he's come into the team as a rookie. So I get the feeling that he will absolutely monster you guys. And that's going to be the one that he'll just rip apart your forward line and pick you guys off too. Looking through here as well. Look, given Ben Keys' history against you guys for last year, he may keep that up as well. I feel like he was used almost as a half-forward swingman sort of thing. But also, I actually do think Isaac Rankin's due for a big one. And coming back to the MCG after what happened last year, I think he's due. And I mean that. I don't mean that. That sounds a really foreboding, he's due, that sort of thing. But I actually do think that Rankin...
Didn't he have mid to high 20s and a couple of goals over the weekend?
Yeah, no big deal. It's just an average one.
So what does due quantify as? 36 and 6 then?
Rankin? Yeah. Look. Isaac Rankin, 5 goals plus. Maybe look that up on Sportsbet, gamble responsibly. But that's one to go for. I don't bet, so it's your money. But look, Riley Tilthorpe as well. I think he could be due, and I say that more in the sense of yes, he kicked 3 goals. However, more to absolutely just monster things and really stick it up Sam Draper as well. It's always so our ruckman Riley O'Brien, just enjoy watching his ruck work. His tongue goes in all sorts of different directions, something fierce, as he's trying to tap the ball So he's good at hit outs, but he's not good at hit outs to our players, which is I feel like it's half of the thing a ruckman should be good at.
It's pretty integral, I would say.
Yeah, it's sort of like that kicking and running thing you mentioned about AFL players. That is quite important. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as far as Essendon players are concerned, what Essendon players are you looking out for over the weekend, and the ones that, you know, give you that sort of shiver up your spine as the ones that could turn the screws in our favour over the weekend?
Well, after tonight, I don't know how to feel, really. I mean, this is going to sound weird. I've always had a soft spot for Tasadas. I don't know why, for no particular reason, really. But the other one as well, purely because he got unleashed of the shackles of being at Port, was Mr. Dersma. So Xavier coming over there.
Had a very good game over the weekend.
He did. He generally did. And look, I always thought he would be a great player at the Crows too, Xavier. Because I think he's an underrated player. And when he moved to you guys, I was actually like, yeah, that'll be a good move for you guys. Look, Caldwell always, I think he played really well against us at Adelaide Oval last year from memory too. So they're probably the ones that I'll be looking at the most. Just looking here, Gresham, you got subbed out. Was that a tactical one or was that...
He was subbed on, so Ridley was subbed out and he was then subbed on, which made a pretty significant difference over the weekend. We were just too tall. You know, we played Ridley, Mackay and Reid, and Mackay and Reid are both over 200 centimetres and Ridley's 193. This week, it makes a little bit more sense, and I would say we might actually see a debutant in Lewis Hayes step in to fill the role of the Riddler, because if you guys do line up with that Fogarty, Tex and Thilthorpe three-pronged approach, I would say, you know, we'll need our big stocks in. And is that what you should... as Essendon supporters, we should expect those three to play over the weekend?
No, definitely. I think that'll be the one you'll be watching out for that one. Now, you said the Riddler. Okay, so we have the Jizzler now with Isaac coming over to us too. Those shirts will be available soon at Crowject at .bigcartel.com. You can get GoCrom merch too if you want. If you sort of, you know, really stick it up to Port is the best way to put it. But look, selections are going to be weird as well because the SANFL hasn't started yet either. So, you know, we don't know how our twos are really going at present. But like I said, no injuries. So we've got pretty much a full list to pick from. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like, say, Billy Dowling come into the team as well, because he's always been a monster. But just doesn't really have the time yet as another midfielder. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I think looking at the weather as well, typical Melbourne Saturday of just after a whole crap ton of rain the day before of 23 and partly cloudy. So who knows? It could be, you know, 150 points plus for both teams or, 35 to 32 slop fest. Who knows? But, yeah. How do you reckon you guys are going to go?
It's hard to say, but if we bring the same effort that we've brought in the 3 games that I've seen us play, I would say I'd give us a pretty good chance of getting the W over the weekend. Playing in Melbourne, playing at the G. We were really quite good last week against Adelaide and not against Adelaide, against Hawthorn. And if we do clean up our disposal, it's the big if. But even if we don't, we still go quite poorly inside forward 50. We're still going to give ourselves every chance of getting the win over the weekend. I just really do. I have some major concerns over our backline at the moment and our ability to defend. Not only that transition, but also we were beaten aerially in a number of contexts by Chol over the weekend, and a few of their smaller forwards as well, taking near to uncontested marks, not a single body on. So there needs to be a bit of a wake-up call this week in defence against some pretty big bodies. And what does concern me, though, a bit about Adelaide is that you do have quite a good amount of players between that 5'10" and that 6'1" and 2" range that are really fast and put a lot of pressure on. And that is the modern-day list development strategy. I mean, you see it with Hawthorn. I mean, Saligo is one of those players. Rankin's one of those players. You've obviously got a number of others that you mentioned off the half back there, and I feel like you guys are just constantly rotating these players through multiple positions that always have some impact. I feel like at times it's actually your smaller players that have a bigger impact than your bigger players when we play you guys.
I mean, you mentioned before about the caliber of 201 centimeter recruits from memory. The one that is a Justin Reed special, as we like to say, is the 182 centimeter brunette. That's what we like to recruit at the Crows. And
there are a lot of those.
Yeah, and where are we going to put them? In the half-back. Where are they going to end their career? In the half-back. It's just that, and then we'll just sort of figure it out in between about where they go. That's what we like to recruit. And it's quite interesting, the 5'10" to 6'2" specials. That's pretty much what we have here. But yeah, look, I'm going to lie. This is a game that personally I think it's going to be closer than people think, purely because, like I said, we've only got a sample of actual competition. I say that actual, in the preseason there is a competitive nature, but it's not hard. It's a little bit washed down. It's not as hard tackling, that sort of thing. But I do think this will be a lot closer than you think. There are going to be a fair amount of Crows fans going over. I can think of about 6 or 7 of my mates that are going over for the game with their families too. So don't be surprised if it's, not as a Bombers dominant crowd as you'd expect. That's all I'll say. Because it's at the perfect time slot to make the trip over. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, mate. Like, really am. So,
well, if there's one thing about the Essendon Football Club, it's either going to be a close game or we'll lose by 5 or 6 goals or more. So, if you're a betting man, and you bet on the line, then I would say, yeah, it's more than likely. Yeah, take it, and it'll be a close game. So, I guess before we wrap things up, Pete, I just wanted to get some predictions. So, your predictions on scoreline and who kicks the most goals and who your best of field is.
Look, I'm going to say I am going to pick the Crows. I'm going to pick them by 11 points. I think Rankin's going to have a day out and he's going to kick 6. Best on ground, I can't go past, and I even mentioned him tonight, Jordan Dawson. I think he's going to be best of field. That dude, he can rip it up something fierce. And he's got the perfect face to be behind a synthesizer in a band, a real 80s band, that sort of thing too, which is great to see. How about yourself, Jesse?
Well, margin as well. I didn't catch the margin, Pete.
11.
Your,
11.
11 points? Okay.
Yeah.
So, nail biter. Very good.
Yes.
Well, 6 goals for Rankin's a big shout. I like it. And I'm not sure where Essendon's going to find its goals this week. But before I tell you my prediction, I am quite intrigued to know who your fullback would be lining up on our future star, Nate Caddy.
Yeah, look, Mark Keane has sort of come on a fair amount. Whether we bring Butts back into the game as well, because he's been out for a little bit. But look, it may be Keane. He's actually been doing pretty well. He's the Irish recruit. But yeah, that may be the one that goes back there against your boy. So, yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Margin for me will be close. I reckon it will be under 10 points. I'm going to say 4 points. And I'm going to say that we do get up. I just can't bet against us at this point in time of the year. It's what's the point in being a supporter if you don't support your team and hope that you're going to win over the weekend? Most goals for Essendon, I'm going to say boldly, will be Isaac Kako, and he'll kick 4 over the weekend. And best of field, I would personally really like to see Sam Durham be best of field, because when he's up and about, it's just scintillating footy to watch.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you're right. What's the point of being a supporter? Look, unless you're a Port fan, then I'd be packing it in personally, which is great to see. Great to see. So, yeah.
Well, look, thanks so much for joining, Pete. I really appreciate you coming on the show for our second round edition of our Oppo preview, and just to give the pod and any other elements a plug, I'll sort of just hand to you so that people know where to find you guys.
Yeah, so anywhere on the socials at Crowject as well. We're pretty active on mostly on Facebook and Instagram too. We have a big merch side of things that we do. That's probably just as big as our pod, if not bigger as well, with all the Go Crom stuff too, including a way to piss off all Port fans too, which here's one I prepared earlier. This is the Garden Stakes Guernsey, which is not beautiful. The Prison Bar Guernsey too. May or may not have gotten a cease and desist by a certain someone at a certain place. But of course, raised about $7,000 for Catherine House, which is a domestic violence shelter in Adelaide. The good thing about that as well is that no better way to piss off a Port fan than to just talk about their history objectively. Yeah, that's the one thing that I enjoy the most too. We do a lot on our Patreon as well, where co-host Leighton, he's doing a whole bunch of archiving of the whole Graham Corns archive as well. So Graham Corns, an AFL Hall of Famer and an inaugural coach, he gave over his whole VHS collection to us, which was all satellite broadcasts of all Crows games that were like perfect quality. From like 1991 onwards. So that's something that we're doing, and we're also doing something leading up to, because this year's the 10-year anniversary of the passing of Phil Walsh, and there's been a certain amount of what we call the Mandela effect of people, remembering things about where they were, that sort of thing, but sort of somewhat inaccurately. And also I want to talk about the mental health aspect for his son, Cy Walsh, who Phil died at the hands of Cy, but obviously there was a huge mental health and addiction side of things too that I don't think is talked about positively enough. So that's something that we've been doing a multi-part series on at present. So yeah, that's what we're doing at the moment, and yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, that's for sure. But all I can say is last Saturday night was beautiful, so I'm very happy about that. So
well, get around their Patreon, Sash Faithful. It's obviously a lot of really good stuff there that you're doing, Pete, for mental health and for some greater causes, and also to shun the dreaded Port. As far as the next show is concerned, crew, we've obviously got our Thursday night preview show where we will be doing a full preview of the game over the weekend. You can catch that on our Patreon. That'll probably release Thursday night at some point in time. So if you're up late, listen to it in bed or, on the train in the morning. Till then, thanks, Pete, for joining, and go Dons.
Go Dons, go Crom. Let's go.